All right. Well, welcome everyone to the Speed Traveler Roadshow. We are coming to you from KHTS studio here in Newhall, California. You can also find the Speed Traveler Roadshow anywhere you find your podcasts. Plus, you can find us on YouTube at The Speed Traveler. And I'm losing my voice here. That's a bad way to start a show, Chris. But I'm joined here by my co-host, Chris Evertsen. How you doing, Chris?
Oh, good, Charlie. Yeah, we got 30 seconds into it, and you're already losing your voice.
Yeah, that's a bad sign, right?
You know what? It's funny because this program's all about cars and traveling and racing and driving a car from place to place. And I'm not in the studio today because I didn't want to get in my car.
Yeah, right. Talk about a hypocrite.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, it's so cold, my battery-powered car won't go anywhere, and my 1971 VW Bug is
yeah, there's no heater in it.
No heater. Headlights barely work.
Yeah, it's. I think we've determined that's the type of car that you drive on Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. or Sunday mornings at 7 a.m. because it's light. So that way, if it breaks down, you're not standing somewhere in the middle of the night. And B, the headlights don't work very well.
No, they do not. There's no way I want to be parked on the side of the road. Any car, to be quite honest. But that's what AAA is for. But Charlie, I mean, it's weird doing these shows when we're so far apart. I'm not used to this doing the program on on my radio and my phone and everything from hundreds of miles away.
Yeah, it is definitely a different vibe, but we're going to cover a lot of fun things today. We're going to talk a little bit about some of our travel that we do and travel that you can do as well using your own car and some fun places to go. Also, we're going to talk about our featured marque today is the Maserati, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the Maserati in upcoming segment. And there's a Maserati out there. We're gonna tease this and not say what it is, but there's a Maserati out there that you could probably buy for about 25 grand today that should double in price down the road. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Formula One and the Dakar Rally and some of our racing coverage. But first, Chris, let's talk about the news of the day. And since Maserati is our featured marque, they have
you kind of teased it right away.
Yeah. Well, we're going to come back with the Maserati you can buy for 25 grand that we think is going to double in price. That's going to be later. But on Maserati news, I'm curious your thoughts on this. So Maserati for years has used the Ferrari engine, V8 engine. And this is going to be the last year. I'm already losing my voice again. This is going to be the last year that they're going to offer the cars with the Ferrari V8 engine, and they're going to go to their own twin-turbo six-cylinder engine from 2025 forward. And, that I think that's been kind of the cool thing about the Maserati brand is you've been able to get it with the Ferrari V8 motor. What do you think?
Well, you know what? It is cool, but honestly, I think it's kind of cool that Maserati is going back to an engine that they really developed in Formula One racing back in the 50s and 60s. And that was their six-cylinder twin-turbo engine.
Right.
So they're kind of going back to their roots. I mean, it's the engine you found in the bi-turbo, which was, available from, 1984 to 1991 or something like that?
Right.
I mean, who doesn't love a Maserati bi-turbo?
One of the
right back to their roots.
Yeah, one of the famously most unreliable cars ever. If you've ever seen the episode of the Grand Tour with Jeremy Clarkson, he loves the Maserati bi-turbo, but there's a really good episode with him out there if you go and search it up. But yeah, I agree with you. They should have their own identity and do their own motor. And I totally get it. It's interesting. The company started, I was doing a little research this morning. This company started in 1914. It's just really pretty unbelievable that they were out there way before Ferrari was out there, and really pretty interesting. But some other news from Maserati, and I'm curious on your take on this because we talk a lot about electric vehicles here and EVs, some government mandates, some positive on EVs and some negative. But I see that Maserati USA CEO Bill Pfeffer, he has decided that they're going to skip hybrids altogether, and they're going to go from the combustion engines directly to developing EVs. I'm on the fence, and I'm curious of your thoughts.
Well, you know what? If that's the direction they want to do, and maybe it's a long-term play that they're looking at, it's not like bringing out a car here in 1 year. It's maybe a longer-term play for that, because there's going to be a learning curve in going all electric all at once. Just as there is with any new adaptation of anything, it's going to require some fine-tuning. And so I'm a little surprised that they would go right past something that I think is a better system anyways, in a hybrid.
Right.
But maybe it's going to save them a lot of money downstream. I mean, maybe they can learn something from brands like Fisker, who just started out as all electric,
right?
And some of the trials and tribulations that they've had to deal with. And how do we not heed the warnings and the words of the folks over at Toyota?
Yeah, exactly. And what Chris is referring to is the Toyota chairman, who he's really been on the fence on EVs, although, Toyota is making EVs and they're making some cool stuff. But
they're making some great EVs.
Yeah, Akio Toyota, and it's spelled with a D, so it's unlike the spelling of the T. Akio Toyota, he came out today, as a matter of fact, and he said that he feels that the West is going about EVs all the wrong way, in the sense that Canada and some places such as California are going to basically force people to only have EV options by 2035. He feels that that's a big mistake, and he feels that you should give people a choice. And man, you gotta love the guy for his libertarian outlook and his freedom outlook.
We can call it libertarian, but I think it has everything to do with commerce. I mean, I think he's looking at what consumers want to buy and are willing to buy and are comfortable to buy, and he's going to make the product that they want the way he wants to. And I really appreciate that. I mean, look, Toyota's been in this game a long, long time. They did produce some of the first electric cars to come out onto the market. They've been working with all kinds of new alternative engine power supplies, like the ammonia-based engine, which uses 5% regular gasoline,
10%,
less ammonia,
right?
10%.
Yes.
So I mean, they're a very innovative company. So I mean, if I'm going to listen to one company over another, in this instance, I'm going to listen to, I'm going to hear and buy into more of what Toyota says. Yeah,
and it's just an interesting, it's a refreshing outlook, and his outlook is he feels that the EVs will make up 30% of the market in total. He thinks that, they may work great in Tokyo, and it's kind of like we've talked about here on the Speed Traveler. Like you mentioned, the Fisker Ocean is a great little car. And it's perfect if you're running around LA and you're running, between LA and San Diego. It's a great car. It's not as good a car when you've got to travel long distances, as we sort of figured out looking at some of the maps. But I like his outlook, because he's like, you guys are doing it all wrong in the U.S. and Canada. He's like, we're going to let the market dictate how many of these cars are sold, and he feels it'll be about 30%. And that feels right to me, because you're gonna have a hard time replacing trucks, and that's how we get all of our goods. I mean, of course, there's train and there's ship.
Once it gets off the train, once it gets off
exactly.
the diesel boat, it gets into a hybrid train, and then is transported to a diesel truck, and
yeah, exactly.
And it gets to a dealership lot near you.
Yeah, but I feel like the 30% mark is that seems about right to me. But I like it. I mean, I like his outlook. It's very refreshing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've heard a lot from the CEOs at the big companies, and I think that they've been wanting to push electric cars for all the right reasons. With the cleaner, with
but
zero emissions.
What? I mean, here in the U.S., it's being mandated. We're being told what we get to do, and the difference between what Toyota is doing is they're asking the consumer, what path do you want to take? And we used to be a democracy, but no longer.
Right.
Here in the U.S., we have to be told, like 3-year-olds, you get an orange or you get a lemon.
Yeah, and if you get the lemon, you get a $7,500 incentive.
Right. If you get the lemon, it'll never work, but whatever.
Yeah.
It's kind of absurd that everything's being ramrodded right down our throats on how we have to think. It's kind of the nature of the United States right now. Politics, business, everything's being kind of rammed down your throat. You're being told how to think and what you get to drive.
Yeah. I think that they should get rid of the incentives because I think it's not fair for a guy that's working at McDonald's and making minimum wage for his taxes to go for people living in one of the wealthiest areas in the country in Santa Monica, for them to get incentives to buy an electric car. It just doesn't, it doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't seem right. But I think and the bigger picture is no one likes to be told what to do. And I think that, the car companies are starting to sense that people aren't digging the fact that they're being told you need to buy an electric car. And it's just not, that's not sitting too well.
Yeah, I agree. But the good news is there are a lot of vehicles out there that are not electric cars, that are fun cars to drive.
Yeah, exactly.
I mentioned one that I didn't want to drive today, in the rain, it's the 1971 Bug. I mean, just because I don't want to drive it today doesn't mean I'm not going to drive it tomorrow.
Yeah, and we did a great
donut shop just around the corner that's dying for me to visit.
Yeah, we did a great video. You can go to our YouTube page, which is The Speed Traveler, and there's a video we did. It was about Mulholland Highway, which is a highway that runs between the mountains here in Los Angeles area, goes from Universal City all the way to Malibu, and there's a great video we made with a Ferrari and a Volkswagen Bug. And so I hope you check that out. It was really fun to make. But what was surprising, Chris, is the 52-year-old Volkswagen Bug was a blast to drive through those windy roads.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it slid through the turns just as nicely as the Ferrari did at times.
Yeah. It's a little higher center of gravity, but a little less.
It was safe.
Yeah.
It was safe.
Yeah, exactly.
Safety third. It may have been third, but it was safety third.
We always say that here at the Speed Traveler, safety last. But yeah, that wraps up our news session here, Chris. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back and we are going to talk a little bit about Formula One. So we should be right back, and please join us. All right, welcome back, everyone. This is the Speed Traveler Roadshow coming to you from Newhall, California at the KHTS radio studio. Also, you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts. And I'm joined by Chris Evertsen, my co-host here. Chris is usually here live in the studio, but he's coming to us from San Diego. And the reason why is because it was raining this morning, and the 1971 Bug that he was planning on driving up here, I think has one wiper that's operational, right? And that's questionable.
Well, the wiper works. Unfortunately, there's no rubber in it, so it's a piece of metal that scrapes on the windscreen. So, yeah, driving that up today was probably not the best idea.
Yeah, and I mean, all heck is broken loose around here in Southern California because it's been raining the last 3 days. So people just don't really know what to do about that. I
don't think you knew what to do about that either.
Well, no, I didn't. I actually was driving a Ford F-150 and it was raining, and I had to pull over and find a cloth to wipe the inside and outside of the windshield, and it still didn't work. It was still literally, I had to do an Ace Ventura and stick my head out the window to see as I was driving here. So I had my head out the window because I could not see through the windshield. But I went to see our buddies over at O'Reilly's Auto Parts here in Newhall. Such good dudes. And they found me the correct wipers, but then problem number 2 came up, and I could not figure out, and I've done this before, swapping out wipers. Maybe I don't have the right size, but I just could not do it. So I'm still driving like Ace Ventura. So if you see someone driving down the highway later today with their head out the window of a Ford F-150, that would be me.
It's all normal.
Yeah, exactly. So you know what, Chris? We are going to talk a little F1 news we're going to talk a little bit of F1 news. The Speed Traveler is coming out with a new Formula One only show. We sure have a lot of people that dig our Formula One content and are asking questions about Formula One. So we're going to do a podcast. It's going to be podcast only for the Formula One show, and it's going to be the Speed Traveler Formula One Deep Dive. And I'm curious if you have any Formula One subjects you want to talk about at the moment.
Well, there's, right now in the off season in Formula One, there's so much stuff that all these pop-ups come up on, big news, radical new 24-year-old driver, this, that, and the other thing. It's all non-news. It's all bait and switch stuff.
Yeah.
The only thing that's really happening in the world of Formula One, as far as fans are concerned, are some team names.
Right. Yeah. And
everything's basically remained the same. The driver lineups are the same. Everyone is basically the same, except for obviously Sauber lost or let me rephrase, the partnership has changed from Alfa Romeo, and now in probably the most horrible Formula One name of all time.
Right.
Sauber will now be known as Stake F1 Team Kick Sauber.
Anyway, is it Stake as an S?
Or is it Sauber Kick Team F1 Stake? I don't know.
So is Stake at least STEAK? So it could be sponsored by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, or is it?
Yeah, that would be kind of nice, but it is not.
It is not. And for those of you,
it's not even STEAK.
And for those of you who don't watch a lot of Formula One is the pinnacle of motorsports in the world. And Netflix came out with an amazing show called F1 Drive to Survive. And they tripled their viewership in the United States. And they are absolutely killing it around the world. I think every event last year on the schedule, and what was it, 23 events, had 300,000+ people at the venue. I mean, that is a global phenomenon for sure.
It's crazy. It's funny because this is the time of year I start, and it's already late. I start looking at F1 tickets and which ones I want to go to and where I want to get tickets. And, the good news is you and I, Charlie, we have some insider action that we can kind of take advantage of and get to some races.
Right.
But, man, tickets are already they're not available. I mean, everything is already selling out for all of the events across the globe.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, and you know what? We have the calendar here in front of us. I'm curious. You've been to more of these circuits. I've been to some. You've been to a lot of them, almost all of them. Are there any that stand out on the calendar to you that you would want to visit?
As far as new races are concerned, I would love to get to like the season opener. I think that would be a lot of fun. It's kind of a new environment, and so I really appreciate that. I got to tell you, the one I didn't get to go to, we didn't get to go to it last year. The one race I really want to go to is Miami. Yeah,
that's true. That would be a great
Miami of races that I have not been to before.
Right, and you were mentioning the first race there, so you were talking about Bahrain, right?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, the island kingdom of Bahrain. It's for those of you who, it's in the Middle East. Don't know, it's in the Middle East. It's a 15-hour flight from Los Angeles to UAE, the Dubai airport. And then you have to jump on a puddle jumper, and it's about an hour south to get to Bahrain. So that's a long trip. But yeah, I'm with you on Miami GP. Haven't been there. I think the Speed Traveler Formula One Deep Dive is going to definitely make a visit to Miami GP this year. That's coming up in May 5th. So it's the start of May.
Yes.
Is there anything else?
May being a huge month of racing, I mean, across the board, there's, May has 3 races on the Formula One calendar, and any one of them would be great to go to. You got Miami, you got Italy, and you got Monaco.
Yeah, so, exactly.
You got 3 great tracks, and it's Imola. It's not Monza.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not mistaken. I think it's Imola, not Monza.
Yeah.
Which is great because last year Imola got rained out.
Yeah,
exactly. Rained out. It got flooded out, kind of like what was happening here in California yesterday.
Yeah,
we got
exactly.
Flooded out.
Got flooded
and
out.
That was the case in, very unfortunate. But, it's going to be a really exciting Formula One race season. And if we're going to talk any kind of F1 news, I mean, we got to kind of have ask some of the questions that I think are in everyone's mind. I mean, obviously Red Bull just absolutely crushed it. I mean, that the team, Adrian Newey, Chris Horner, and everyone on the team just crushed it with Max Verstappen behind the wheel and Sergio Perez behind the wheel. I mean, they just dominated the entire season, other than one race where Carlos Sainz and the Ferrari won. And the question begs, what combination of car and driver are going to step up and challenge the Red Bulls in 2024? I mean, can Lewis Hamilton come back to form in the Mercedes?
Yeah.
Does Ferrari have anything to offer, or is Ferrari going to be Ferrari?
Yeah. Ferrari's
still promise and fail miserably.
Yeah, exactly. Big promise. Well, they extended the contract for Charles Leclerc. So he's the dude going forward for Ferrari. Carlos Sainz is his co-driver, or not his co-driver, but his teammate, excuse me. But Carlos has a contract through this coming year, but after that, who knows? So Leclerc's the guy, and I kind of see that as one of the biggest possible threats to Max. What do you think?
Yes, I would agree with that. I mean, Charles Leclerc has shown incredible driving skill. He's been chasing those elusive wins, which he has been getting, but I think he's been chasing so hard, and I know this from personal experience. Sometimes when you chase something that you really should be able to attain too hard, you chase too hard and you start making mistakes. And so Charles Leclerc needs to clean up those mistakes and drive a clean year, front to back. Every single race needs to be clean. You don't need to win every race, but you've got to finish every race.
Right.
That's the thing that the Red Bulls were able to do. They were able to complete virtually every single race without mechanical failure.
Yeah, every single lap. That's pretty amazing. You mentioned Red Bull, and Red Bull has, I guess you could call it sort of a B team. They've had it for 18 years now. I was surprised when I saw how long it'd been going. It used to be called Toro Rosso, which was Italian for Red Bull. And then the last 4 years, it's been called AlphaTauri, which was their big sponsor, which is a clothing brand. But I see this year they're going to rebrand that team. And what's the name of that new team, Chris?
Yeah, almost as good as Steak F1 team kick for Sauber. The AlphaTauri team now is going to be known as the Visa Cash App RB, which basically means we're going to all call it the RB. Which is, it's kind of funny. It is the B team to Red Bull. And something that Zach Brown has brought up is that he thinks it might be a little unfair for teams to have B teams like
right.
this. And the Visa Cash App RB is definitely a B team to Red Bull,
sure,
a little sister feeder team to them, which could be providing a great platform for the Red Bull team to test new products on another team, unbeknownst to other teams. So Zach Brown's kind of saying there might be a little bit of a disadvantage or to his team and other teams, or Red Bull has an advantage by having this B team available for whatever data purposes they want.
Right. And Zach Brown is the team principal for McLaren F1. And I think he's got a great point, like the Visa Cash App RB. By the way, they could call it VCarb. I've just coined the name VCarb for him, which is the initials Visa Cash App Red Bull. But that's a good point. They can, when they're out of the hunt for the championship, which will probably be by race 3, they could start testing products and pieces on the car that they could upgrade to the actual Red Bull team. So, I think Zach Brown has a really good point on that.
Right. I mean, even though the regulations that, kind of prevent that from happening, if you're, as everyone knows, if you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that we've ever cheated, but.
Yeah, no, of course not. But before we move on to the next segment, are there any other F1 races that you would recommend for someone that's sort of new to the motorsports world that have just, really epic events and epic locations?
One of the easiest races to really deal with is surprising to me, and that for anyone to kind of go to, I always bring it up. It's a bucket list. It's a race. It's an iconic track, but it's Monza.
Right.
Monza is so easy to get to. It's easy to walk around. Bring your comfortable shoes. The history is unbelievable. All that history is still there. So I highly recommend, if you're in the European market, to hit Monza. If you come to the Americas, honestly, the Canadian Grand Prix.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that. I've actually never been to that.
Great track and great event.
Great, great city and great track.
Yeah. So, and it's really easy to go to. Travel is simple. Getting around the track is really easy. So there's a lot to see there. So I mean, I really like the Canadian Grand Prix as well. I mean, there are so many tracks on this calendar with 24 events. It's hard to pick just one.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is, by the way, the longest calendar, F1 calendar in history. It would have been this many last year, but Imola got rained out, and the Chinese Grand Prix was not produced as well.
Right.
So those two events are on the calendar year, and that's what brings it up to 24 races. And I was mentioning the ticket thing and tickets not being available for Formula One races, but like I was seriously contemplating doing a European run and getting tickets to Austria and to Silverstone, and Austria is basically sold out.
That's crazy.
It's absolutely 100% sold out. I mean, it is Red Bull Nation. It is Max Verstappen land. I mean, that's basically his home away from home. So it's not surprising that it's completely sold out. But it's also crazy that it's completely sold out.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I think you've been to Austria a few times. Great track. So good stuff, Chris. Well, we are going to take a quick break. And when we're coming back on the other side of the commercial, we're going to talk Maserati and talk about a specific car that we think may double in value if you buy it today. So this is
a spoiler alert. It's a bi-turbo.
Exactly. It's the coupe. It's not the bi-turbo. So, but
it's not the bi-turbo.
It's not the bi-turbo. Although you probably could double. You find one for $2,000 and sell it for $5,000, and you would more than double your money. So
I'm not going to give that spoiler now, but that number is so wrong. It's crazy.
All right, guys. This is the Speed Traveler Roadshow. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right. Welcome back to the Speed Traveler Roadshow. We are coming to you live from the studio at KHTS Radio, hometownstations.com. You can also find us anywhere you get your podcasts. And on the Speed Traveler YouTube page, you can check out all our episodes and all of our fun adventures. I'm joined by my co-host, Chris Evertsen. Normally, Chris is here live, but he didn't want to face the driving rainstorm in Southern California, a.k.a. drizzle, and take it up to the studio. How you doing today, Chris?
Good. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to rip on myself and say, it started drizzling, so I had to get a parka. I had to put on a parka and turn the heat up to 90.
Yeah, exactly. If you turn on any television news station, they're like Storm Watch 2024. It's like the sky is falling.
Oh, it's mass hysteria. Dogs and cats sleeping together is just unbelievable.
Exactly. So here on the Speed Traveler Roadshow, we talk about racing events and car events, fun things you can do with your car. We also talk about classic cars, some that are going up in value. And today our featured marque is the Maserati. And Chris, we were going to start with the Maserati Coupe. But it sounds like you've been doing a little research on the bi-turbos. Those were the 80s cars, and and I've only heard that they're a handful of trouble, but they're cool looking cars.
Well, they are cool looking cars. I mean, they're very boxy. I mean, it's kind of the Italian version of a Chrysler K car. Right. Body styling.
Just with a little pizzazz.
There's something hideously beautiful about this car. I mean, it's on I think it's on the top 10 list with Jeremy Clarkson, which, it's kind of funny. I mean, I don't know that it matters necessarily whether it's on the top 10 of Jeremy Clarkson's list or not. But it's just such a quirky car. But the thing is, it comes with a great foundation. I mean, we were talking about it previously, that 6-cylinder twin turbo engine, bi-turbo.
Right.
It's just that it was a very, very, it was Formula One introduced and tested,
inspired, right?
Developed. and inspired, and it ended up in this car, and it makes for a super sporty little sedan. I mean, you know, this is what you might see going up against the Cadillac Eldorado Coupe.
Yeah, no, exactly. The famous Cadillac Eldorado Coupe, of which we own one. But yeah, getting back to the Maserati, what would you expect? I mean, I'm not sure if I think the market, unfortunately, has kind of caught up to the fact that you could buy those Maserati biturbos for, you know, $8,000 before, because you're saying you're seeing them for much more than that these days.
Yeah, you know, at some of the collector locations and higher and more finished cars, they're pushing over $30,000. I mean, I saw a really nice one that looked like it was in perfect nick for $37,000, and that's kind of the pinnacle of the vehicle right there.
Right.
Right now. I mean, that to me seems like an awful lot of money for the car.
Yep.
But if you do look around, I mean, I've looked in Craigslist and some other places, and I found some. You know, they're kind of hovering around that $5,000, $6,000 mark.
Yeah.
But none of them have been perfect.
Yeah, and we just saw one on Hemmings.com. Hemmings.com is a great source for classic cars. They've got, you could pretty much search for any car that's ever been made. I saw the other day they had the Crosley on there. I got excited because I thought it was the Crosley Formula Ford race car, but it was the Crosley brand from the 40s. But
oh my gosh,
we saw one on Hemmings. We saw a biturbo on Hemmings today for $5,500, and I love how it said it runs and drives, will need new gas, and then it says has not been started in 10 years.
So very much a buyer beware environment right there.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to go check out that car, bring your magnifying glass.
And a Maserati expert. And it doesn't have to be a dealer, because you're probably not going to find any dealers that have guys that know those cars too well because they're so old.
Right.
But
right.
yeah, that's sage advice.
The fixes were actually pretty easy. I mean, it kept having problems because it was just an amalgam of parts. I mean,
right.
They basically just kind of threw everything at this car.
Yep.
And it's not pure Maserati, you know?
Yeah.
So the problem is it has all these weird little quirks, and so which were actually really challenging to find out what the problem was and how to fix it. But when you did find out what it was a fairly easy fix, and parts were actually pretty readily available. But that's the good news there is a lot of people couldn't figure out what the problem was, so they parked it. So you're finding chassis with 30,000 miles on it. You're finding a 45-year-old car with only 30,000 miles on it.
Right.
It just has some weird, quirky issues to deal with. It's a matter of spending the time and figuring out what that quirky issue is. It's not necessarily chassis rust or body rust or anything like that. It's really just some weird electronic engineering thing.
Yeah. Well, we teased the segment by talking about a car that you very well might be able to double your money on. And Maserati, kind of after the biturbo, that was their big reintroduction sort of to the American market. And then they had some interesting little cars along the way. But then about 2001, I feel like they got their stuff together and they built, you know, the styling of the 2001 to 2007 Maserati Coupe and Spider was not for everyone. I guess you could put it that way. But what was cool about that car was that they borrowed the V8 engine, the 4.2 liter V8 from Ferrari, and they stuffed it in this little two-seat sedan or two-seat coupe. And, you know, you could find those in a manual out there. You can find those for $25K. And, you know, there's not many places you can get a Ferrari engine with a manual in a pretty rare car for $25,000. So, you know, interesting car.
That is a great car, and I'm curious if there's any sharing in the engine. This is not research I've done with the same engine that is in the Alfa Romeo Quadrifoglio.
Yeah,
it might be the exact same platform right there, which, you know, quite frankly, not a problem for me.
Yeah, no,
that's a great platform.
Yeah, great platform. And for those of you who are going to go out there and look for the Spiders, Coupes, and Grand Sports, the 2001 to 2007, the Spider, of course, was the convertible. The Coupe was the hardtop two-door. Grand Sport came along later. The one thing about the Grand Sport 2004, Chris, to 2007 was it only came in the Cambrio Corsa, which was the It's not the manual. It's the, it's their version of the paddle shift.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah. So, and by the way, Cambria Corsa means, in Italian, it means race shift. So that was kind of the cool thing about the car at the time. But if you could find a manual out there, there's only about 1,600 of those Ferrari engined cars. And I bring up, remember the Fiat Ferrari from the 70s, Chris? Those things we bought for almost nothing. And then when people realized they had a Ferrari engine in them, the price went crazy on that. So something similar to that. Also, there's the Shamal. That was an interesting car that never made it here. It's just such a cool. They only made about 400 of them, but if we're gonna put a picture up on the YouTube page, but it's so cool. It looks kind of like a rally car.
Yeah, it's kind of cool though. I mean, the Shamal. If you look at the current offerings, there's a lot of the body styling that looks very similar to the MC20. Or MC20.
Right. It has like the fender flares and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No,
Very
it's
cool.
Maserati's a great brand. I mean, of course, you can't bring up Maserati without bringing up the Gran Turismo, which is a stunning car. That came after the coupes. So that came in the 2008-9 era. And you could find 10-year-old ones, 12-year-old ones for $40,000. None of them came in a manual, but they did have the Ferrari engine in it. It's a beautiful car.
And you bring up an interesting point in that these cars are beautiful, and I'm curious if now with Lawrence Stroll bringing Maserati to the Formula One world, and with drivers like Fernando Alonso, are Maserati cars going to start to pick up in price? I feel like now's a good time if you can get in a little bit early.
Agreed.
I think Maserati cars. Maserati. What am I saying?
Aston Martin.
Off my rails. Aston Martin. God, I'm completely off the rails today.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you don't come into the studio and you stay home and drink too much coffee.
The espresso machine literally just turned on again.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying, that Maserati is coming back. They've got some really cool exotic cars, so it isn't a bad time to get in on the Maserati wagon now. Before people realize how cool those things are.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess what I was trying to get to is the parallel there is that, Aston Martin, all of a sudden, all the prices have really jumped on the classic cars.
They have.
We might start seeing the same with Maserati with their new lineup.
Yeah, I think, that's a good point. And we haven't done a Aston Martin show. We should do it. And we should try and get Lawrence Stroll on. That'd be really fun.
He's only up in Canada.
Yeah, he's in the same time, basically the same time zone. But yeah, we're going to wrap up this segment. But just quickly to review, we do like the Maserati brand. It's been around since 1914, so it's over 100 years old, which I didn't realize. And they've got some really cool cars out. The Shamal, if you're a little more adventurous, that's something that you would have to import. But now that it's 25 plus years old, you can import those cars much more easily. That basically, you can't import cars from Europe that are newer than 25 years, but older, it's a classic car, you can import it. That's a great car. And if you can find a Maserati coupe with a manual, that's a car we think is going to double in price. But this is the Speed Traveler Roadshow. We are going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Dakar Rally. All right, welcome back to the Speed Traveler Roadshow here on KHTS Radio in Newhall, California. You can also find us anywhere you get your podcasts and on our YouTube page, which is The Speed Traveler. So go check out some of the videos there. I am joined by my co-host, Chris Evertsen. And Chris, we're going to talk a little bit in this last section about, wrap up a little bit on Maserati and talk a little bit about the Dakar Rally.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get back to the Maserati, but the Dakar Rally was that was just so cool, just so freaking cool. And you'll definitely get deeper into that. But with Maserati, it's cool. We didn't talk about this in the last segment, but they do sponsor a Formula E team. In the all-electric Formula One world, which is pretty cool because, you and I kind of rip a little bit on the all-electronic world as being mandated and rammed down our throats. But the Formula E racing has been pretty exciting throughout the years. And Formula E is going to be adding a Constructors' Championship, which a lot of teams are now becoming, in this case, Maserati. Like Maserati MSG Racing is in the field, and their two drivers, Max Gunther and Johan Daruvula are their drivers. And the first race of the year was just last week in Mexico City. And Max Gunther actually had a really good showing and finished fourth in that race. So, it's cool to see Maserati out in the world of racing and in a unique world of racing, especially like you were talking about. They're going from 0 to 100 in the electric car world.
Right.
And here they are in the Formula E world, which is all electric racing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's a good strategy for them. It's a great strategy for them because if you didn't hear the earlier part of our show, part of our Maserati news for the day was that they're really skipping the hybrid technology and they're going straight from combustion engine. Well, they're going to offer both. They're going to have their new V6 twin turbo engine, and then they're going to offer an EV. They're not going to offer a hybrid. So you know what, Chris, that makes a lot of sense. They've got their EV race car out there, and if they become the EV world champion, it's going to help boost their sales and put them on the map for the EV world.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of neat.
But let's talk a little bit about the Dakar Rally. For those of you who don't know about the Dakar Rally, it's the longest off-road race in the world. It goes over 14 days, 12 stages, about 5,000 miles. And Americans did quite well this year.
Oh my gosh, the racing has been phenomenal across the board in every single category. The scenery has been beautiful, but
right.
A couple American pilots have just done great.
Yeah, and Chris is talking about, first off, the Americans, and a spoiler alert here, if you're going to go back and watch it, you might want to turn this part down. But in the motorcycle division, Ricky Brabek won his second overall championship at Dakar. And that's really impressive. His last overall win came in 2020. In 2021, he came in second. So that was fantastic for him and Honda. He's local to Southern California. He's going to be absolutely stoked. I mean, that's a huge honor. It's basically like doing 5 Baja 1000s, and you got to survive it. And so, to be able to win 2 overall championships, pretty crazy. In the side-by-side, the Challenger class, Mitch Guthrie from Arizona came second overall. He was leading a lot of it, but he ended up second, but, got some stage wins and did quite well. But what I really wanted to highlight is Sarah Price, who is a stunt driver here in Los Angeles. She entered her first Dakar, won a stage, and ended up, it was in the top 10 the entire event. And I mean, for those of you who don't know the Dakar Rally, the teams are well funded, and you don't just show up and win a stage. And she's the first American woman to win a stage in the Dakar. Pretty impressive.
Oh my gosh, it's so cool. I mean, just so cool. And she just drove a consistent race. She didn't go crazy. She never had any major mishaps or anything like that. Just consistency. And like you said, she got that stage win. Yeah. And to do so well, just congratulations to her. But look at all the other drivers too. Carlos Sainz, who's been doing this forever. He's like the grandpapa of the car race.
He really
rally.
is. Yeah.
Carlos Sainz, the Ferrari driver's father. So racing pedigree right there. And man, just an absolute technician. And how old is he?
He's 62, I think. Yeah.
62, I think. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I don't think I could handle that race at all.
Yeah. And the hybrid electric Audi, he took that car, and a lot of people thought it was too delicate for the Dakar, but El Matador, which is his nickname, he did it, and that's for all of you that are 60 plus years old. There you go. He beat the best drivers in the world. A lot of them were in their 20s, and in grueling, intense race that goes over, as we said, 14 days. And cheers to Audi and El Matador.
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, anyone that's listening or watching the show, go to YouTube and check out some of the highlights from the Dakar Rally, because the photography is incredible. The terrain, looks so amazing and unhospitable at the same breath. It's unbelievable. What an event.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a great point. You could go to YouTube. NBC covered it, so they have every segment. So if you go and put it into car, stage 5, it'll just automatically, when that one's done, it'll go to stage 6 and 7 and 8, 9, 10. And you're right. Like if you're a car person and you're not watching Dakar, it's shot incredibly well. It's pretty much shot all from helicopters. So you just get this really unique view. And, something that you can have on in the background while you're doing work or whatever. Just really, really good suggestion, Chris. But
it is. And here's the bonus to that. It's like even if you're not a car person, if you're a travel person,
right,
you've got to watch it. It's just unbelievable. It's one of my father was an avid cyclist, loved the Tour de France, and he loved the bike racing. But he watched the Tour de France not for the bike racing.
Oh, yeah.
It was for the scenery, the terrain, and everything else was going on around him, around it. And the Dakar Rally is kind of the same thing. You don't have the fan base, but the terrain and the topography it's just gorgeous.
Yeah. Oh, no, I agree. It's such a great event. But that's going to basically wrap up this episode. We talked Maserati. We talked F1. Don't forget the Speed Traveler's going to have a new F1 podcast only for our hardcore F1 fans. And we'll be back next week with a new car and a new show. Thanks, Chris, for today. And we'll see everyone next week.